are going to be talking about Axum and Great Zimbabwe. Axum today is known as Ethiopia. Before we get that, we're going to have just a wee bit of prelude. So we talked about the Bantu and how they moved around, and we see that the Bantu by 1100, they were on the east coast of Africa. You can probably skip this bullet and the next one as well, because it's the same kind of story you hear typically when you have movement of people. People move there. You know, Iris is like, I need a new place. So she moves. And then, you know, she starts forming villages because, of course, Amanda's like, well, if Iris is there, I want to go there. And then, you know, they have a nice little village. And then Rachel's like, well, that sounds great. Those are such nice people. And then Nalea comes and they wind up having a city. And then when there's a city, of course, Nora's going to sail up on her boat and say, hey, let's trade because I want to make money. You want to make money. And then they high five and they trade. So we're going to see a ton of trade developing along the east coast of Africa and what we have created from there. And I do want you to have this one. So bullet number 4, make sure to have this. So what we have is the Bantu and then the Arabs melding their language and cultures together, and it's what we get called Swahili. So Swahili is a language that is spoken today, but it's also the culture that we describe that region, where you have the combination of Arab customs and indigenous African customs. You know, you have the Arab language, Arabic, and then of course, you know, Bantu mixed in there. Hi there, Hayden. Nice to see you there. You were on a boat trading, Nora, making the money. And you don't have to write this, but there are 35 cities is a lot of cities to be having there, and they're all going and getting traded with extensively. And what's really super cool is we have this dude visiting him. Meet Ibn Battuta. You're going to read a quote from him in your book, and Ibn Battuta might be one of the most interesting people of the Middle Ages. He's super duper cool. You see, most people throughout most of history, you were born someplace, you had like a 5-mile radius, and you never went out of that 5-mile radius of where you were born. Meaning you lived your whole life and died within 5 miles from where you were born. Isn't that crazy? Ibn Battuta is going to travel over like the whole, like practically the whole world. Like he doesn't make it to North and South America or Australia, but they didn't even know about those places yet. He doesn't go to Antarctica either, but he goes to Europe, he's in Africa, he's all over Asia. It's incredible. And the man was kind and wrote about it. And he was like, well, they are really rich and wealthy here over in East Africa. So we have evidence of tons and tons of trade. He's going to go to West Africa too, and he's going to say, hey, wow, this is really cool. We practice Islam this way in the Middle East, but they practice Islam very differently. And for example, we don't give a lot of rights to girls and things like that, and they have some girl leaders. And we don't let girls like have swords and spears, and they have girl warriors there. And he just thought it was amazing how in Africa, like they literally had female warriors. And it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, we do it completely differently. So here, of course, I'm going to, 1 second. So here's where Ibn Battuta traveled. Like everywhere. It's crazy. So he goes all along East Africa, all through Arabia, obviously. He goes all through North Africa. He goes to West Africa. And look, you know, he's in continent, so he goes through Europe over here. He's in Crimea. He's through Russia over there. He goes around. Like he was in Iran. He goes through Afghanistan. He goes to India. He goes all the way around India. He winds up getting to Southeast Asia. He goes to China. He goes everywhere. It's incredible. I will miss a day in history. I am not signing up. So it's pretty cool. I like Ibn Battuta a lot. He's super interesting. Does his camel walk on water? No, his camel does not have faith. He took a boat. I was referencing, of course, when Peter walked on water for a second and then he like doubted it and didn't have faith. And then, I don't have enough faith to walk on water either. So, you know, but I'll try. Now, everybody always talks about Marco Polo. Like everybody here heard about Marco Polo. Am I right? Marco Polo. Look at this. So yeah, Marco Polo went a long ways. Marco Polo had an incredible journey, but everybody knows the name Marco Polo. Do you know Ibn Battuta? Probably not until now. And look, Ibn Battuta, he did what Marco Polo did and more. So, yay for Ibn. And that's such a cool name. So, Axum. They are the place that conquered Kush. We talked about them last year, unless your name is Eli or Hayden or anyone else who wasn't in my class last year. And we know, because you read about it already in your homework, Axum is going to be powerful because of the trade. They are right by the Red Sea, so they can trade with Arabia, they can trade with India. They're along the Nile River, so they can go trade all along the Nile up to the Mediterranean. They're near the plains of the Savannah, so they can trade all over. West Africa, South Africa, East Africa, they can trade. And they get rich from it. Hooray. Now, one of their big things that are going to help them out, of course, is the Tao, which you should know because it's one of your vocabulary words. But if you don't, it is a sailboat with triangular sails. Yeah, and it was really fast, and they're able to go on the sea. Not under the sea, on the sea. And we are talking about they focused on trade. You could omit most of this, but it's pretty cool because around 400, Axum converts to Christianity, which is kind of interesting. Prior to that, actually, Judaism was one of the most popular religions there, which is very interesting. So Axum is going to be a Christian kingdom, which is going to be pretty rare for Africa. One thing you'll notice, you'll see Axum spelled A-K-S-U-M and A-X-U-M. You'll see them both. They're pronounced the same way, but it doesn't matter anymore because we don't call it Axum. We call it Ethiopia. So there you go. There's this crazy story that there is a church there that actually says they have the Ark of the Covenant and the Ten Commandments, but you can't go into it because, like the end of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, like your face would melt. So there's no like confirmation about it, but it seems like a really cool story. Look it up sometime. You don't have to write this either, but it's called the Hermit Kingdom because what we're going to see at this time, there's the countries of Europe, which are going to be predominantly Christian, with the exception of Spain, which is going to have a lot of Muslims and Jews in it. But Europe was typically thought of as Christian, and they were all kind of one block, even though they like to fight each other and everything, and they all listen to the Pope. Whereas Ethiopia did not really go with that. So they joked with them that the Hermit Kingdom because they don't interact with anyone else. A hermit is someone who like lives in a cave with goats and stuff like that, doesn't talk to people. Here we see another picture of Axum and just the trade routes. You see lots of trade, lots of trade. Roger left. Oh, I'm so sad. And now we get to Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe is interesting. So you can shorten all of this, but we believe there was an empire that traded gold. All right. Zimbabwe literally means stone houses. And here's the thing. Like, London's walking around one day, and she stubs her toe on a big rock, and then she like starts uncovering it, and she realizes it's the whole city. So she calls her buddy Jackson over. Jackson goes and says, "Huh, wow, look at this. This must have been a huge city." So we believe that Great Zimbabwe was this amazing, powerful empire. And we think maybe it was like the religious center and the political center, but we don't actually know much anything about it because literally we just found the ruins. That's it. Because mysteriously it is abandoned. No one knows why. So we have this Arab map from back then, and they see, okay, we have something on that location, but we don't have anything written about it. So we don't know like who the rulers are or what they were doing or anything. We just have these amazing stone ruins, and they're really honking big, and there's lots of them. So we know they had to be rich. They know they had to be powerful, and from the location, it looks like, well, probably from trade. But we know almost nothing. It's a great one of those history mysteries, which I just love that sort of thing. Maybe archaeologist Hayden one day will go and discover the truth about Great Zimbabwe, and he can teach all of us. Don't be a hermit, Eli. You're too cool of a guy. In fact, you're way too like friendly to be a hermit. Hermits typically like don't want to interact with people, and then they grow crazy beards. So that is our notes for the day. Our next slide is going to have a picture of some of the ruins because you can see that they're big, honking, and big. I know I said big twice. Oops. So here we go. We see it. And yeah, So this is what we have left of Great Zimbabwe. And otherwise, just the mystery. So I'm going to stop the recording here. Does anyone